There we go. All right, I call the meeting to order. This is the March 20th meeting of the MGLD Board of Commissioners. It is 6:32 PM. And this meeting is being
We don't, but can you guys hear us?
Hang on. So,
Can hear you, but we lost video.
Yeah, yeah.
Click on it.
Oh, there you go.
yeah.
Thank you.
all right. We got to aim the camera down a little, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Wow.
Had this all set. Why did it mess up?
This happened last time.
Um,
That's good.
Okay.
It's happened a couple times, Pete. We should probably have Jeff take a look at it.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be like 30 to 60 seconds after hitting record, it resets itself.
All right. There we go.
Great. So, but you said you all heard everything else I said when I started the meeting?
There was a 30-second cutout, but we heard you open the meeting.
Okay, so we are in session, being recorded. Are there any commissioner reports?
I have none. No.
Okay.
No,
And I don't see anyone from the public, so there are no public comments. So we might as well begin right away. I'll turn it over to John to start the discussion on strategic planning.
First comment is you did a fantastic job narrowing what you've done. And you did a great job in building your initiatives, and Elton, by not doing his, did a great job because we'll build some initiatives together and think about how we're thinking about these to then review the ones that are already in the document. After we've done the working on technology initiatives, we'll then go through them one by one and see if they're in the right priority list to make sure, and if there's any wording or changes that we want to make. We're not doing the final edit. You can do that final edit in your own time and send it to me, and then I will aggregate it. And we're just wanting to get the sense of the room about the language that you want to use and what expresses the kind of, again, initiatives with directions that you want to go with each of these goals. Let me give you another quick preamble. Are these goals in the order of importance that you would say want them to be? I will share my screen now so that you have them up on the screen, and for those of you at home, you'll see the screen and you'll see me editing as we go along. So is electric, gas and supply develop a 2030 energy supply transition plan driving towards the 250 net zero energy goal? Is that number one?
I think so.
I think they're all equal, actually.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that they're just, in my mind, they're just numbered, simply be numbered and not a sort of stack rank. It's because they all are equally important in their own right, I would say.
So from an importance, they're equally important. I think they need to be in a sequence in order for the first one to inform the second and the third and so on and so forth.
Say more about what you mean by that.
So when I think about how a forecast would be influencing electric or gas system infrastructure build out, is we're gonna need the forecast in order to figure out what do we need to build.
Right, in terms of the timing of the initiatives as opposed to those, right, so we're gonna do the timing piece as either something that you want to hear within the next year, or we're gonna decide tonight to give that to staff to then prioritize for us.
But I would think it's not necessarily sequential. In my opinion, some of these have to happen before others, but others are gonna happen at the same time.
Parallel, yeah.
One of the products that you have to decide whether you want to create, not my recommendation, or you want the staff to create, is the step-by-step roadmap of the fulfilling of the initiatives. So one of the assignments that comes out of this is your executive team divides and conquers, looking at the priorities within each goal and the timelines within each goal.
Can I ask a question about that? So wouldn't this be more of the strategic plan, then what you're describing a little bit earlier is sort of the next step after that, where you take each piece and you start executing upon it.
Yes.
So in my mind, when I think about what a strategic plan would be, is everything laid out, not to the level of details that everybody should know what to execute on, but at least this is what we're shooting for. And let's work on each one of those individually.
Totally agreed. And what we're testing here is what level of depth you want to go to. So for instance, when we do this work and finish up the initiatives, you could go to the next level of strategy, which is the how. And you could define for the staff and for the organization how you're going to develop a 10-year coordinated electric and gas supply forecasting. You could actually go that's what I'm doing with school
Yeah.
district.
Yeah.
You can also leave that to the staff to do the hows.
Correct.
And the timelines. It's up to you. You're making those decisions as a group because and I don't have a recommendation there. It's how much time you want to spend.
So just for your information, Pete, I mean, the way I'm thinking about it is identifying the hows, but not necessarily the when. So at least we know what needs to happen and how it's gonna happen, but not necessarily like tying it in, at least with the strategic plan initially.
See, my opinion would be, a lot of these, we don't know the hows yet, so defining the hows might be premature. For example, like the first one John was describing before you guys came. So develop a 10-year forecast. Would we consult for that? Would we hire a staff for that? Would we? So the how is premature, but we know we need to do it. So we need to look at, do we work with MWEC to do it? Do we, so there's a bunch of different ways we could do it, and we just need to kind of evaluate those. So if you look at a bunch of these, that's probably the same thing.
But pause there. So this is the first case study. You could do the strategy work as a board and say, we're going to analyze as a board for each of these initiatives, the strategy that you want used. Make a recommendation. It goes back to the staff and the staff says, yes, that's right, or no, that's not right. Or you can say to the staff, please come to us with your recommendation of the strategy, the how, and then we will review those. So there are boards or committees or commissions doing this kind of work that want to get into that level of detail. It's not what I'm recommending for this group because of your time. I would rather have you review them rather than create them. I would rather have, even though this is a unique commission because your expertise is so great, the twist is you're not giving your staff a chance to show off first, which is what I prefer. But again, I hear you saying you want to say. The question is, do you want a creation say, or do you want a review say? Do you want to build the strategies, or do you want to review the strategies?
We want to review the strategies.
Okay. So then our work tonight is to go over each initiative within each goal, in addition to completing the initiatives for IT, and determine what we want from the staff and on what timeline. And then secondly, to determine what presentation format you want to go through in terms of making this a public document beyond the notes, and how much depth you want to put in that. So you could, of course, as a public document, have the hows in there, and it's a 12-page document. You leave it as the goals and initiatives with the mission and vision, and it's a 4-page document. So that's what we'll decide on the back half of tonight. Any other needs that I didn't mention?
Yeah, I mean, I just think some of them are gonna be, like, you could have more meat around it earlier than others. Some of them, we might not have more meat around it for a little while.
Yep.
So that's the hard part about the 12-page document as opposed to the 4-page document, in my opinion.
Well, also, do you believe, let's do one more preamble question. Is this an evolving document that you're going to edit over time, or does this live in the archives and it is the fixed document from which you always work? Does this become an oracle? Or is this a working document?
I think that this is a working document, and as a document that is used as a lens as projects and initiatives come about, because we don't know what 5, 10, 15, 20 years looks like. And so I don't think in any way, shape, or form that this is a fixed document at the end of this, and it can't evolve. I think it has to be able to evolve.
To make Tom's point, 10-year forecast could suddenly become 5-year forecast because the data proves out to be too difficult for 10 years. And we do it in year one for 10 years and we realize we're so wrong that we need to actually do it in shorter timeframes. That's an example of how this would play out. I hear Tom's vote for it's a movable feast. What would you say, Sharon?
I would like to have it be kind of a fixed document that where there's a plan to update it on a regular cadence, like maybe once every 5 years. I think I want, it shouldn't be so detailed that we have to revise it, continuously revise it. Because I feel it loses value if you're constantly changing it. It should be kind of more of a North Star, in my opinion.
Tom, what level of editing did you refer to by saying you want it to be a movable feast?
To the point, where you'd said, your example of where data changes and, 10 years might be 5 years, or we were completely wrong in some sort of forecast. That we would go in and change it. And
Tom, if I could, I think that we would want to have, the what and the when nailed down and have staff provide details on the how. And we would review and vet that. So, and it would be at a level where I think we wouldn't have to, we might avoid that issue of.
Would the group be in favor of a yearly review to make sure that the North Star is still accurate? Because again, any astronomer knows that the universe is expanding. It is a loaf of raisin bread. And as it continues to yeast itself, the stars go in a slightly different place. And so I'm pushing this as a thought catalyst, and you should push back, Sharon, if you disagree.
I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
And just to get another voice out there. I mean, I see where you're both coming from. I'm kind of leaning more towards Sharon's point of view, because I don't want everyone to think of this as a document that when we say living, that it's always changing. I'd rather have it be more something that that guides us, that's fixed. But like Sharon said, that's reviewed periodically. So like, I don't know if it has to be reviewed every single year. But I originally thought that we would have something like a 7 to 10 year plan that we review every 2 to 3 years. I mean, in terms of the big goals and the initiatives, but in terms of the how and the when, yeah, those might change a little bit. Those parts, so I'm looking at it as part of it is fixed.
Yeah.
And then part of it is just going to be the mechanics that will evolve, So,
To your point, I mean, a lot could change that will change the plan if we lay it out initially, right? I mean,
Give an example.
well, even on the forecast, right? We can have the perfect forecast, 10-year forecast, but then an existing building gets torn down and now it's a data center that goes in. And it doubles the load on our town.
Well, okay. I hear you. I think that, can we just have it so that we refresh the forecast and we don't have to refresh the strategic plan?
So, but where I was
So-
getting with that, it's like a large customer showing up in our service territory. It's not gonna necessarily change the forecast drastically, because the forecast is still gonna continue. Those, like, what we refer to as spot load. The plan laid out based on the forecast that we're, let's say, working today is gonna change, because now instead of reinforcing the system as it is, I gotta build specifically for this customer, and there's a finite number of dollars associated in any given year. So the plan, the capital plan needs to be changed to accommodate the customer need. But our strategy shouldn't change. Our strategy is still gonna remain the same. The plan itself is gonna change.
The bigger things that I could think could shape it for electrification, even from when we started doing our forecast a few years ago, it's going slower.
Yeah.
Because EV adoption is facing lots of obstacles right now. So does the state take an action which dramatically changes that, either pushing that backwards or forwards, that has a dramatic impact on EV adoption? Because right now it's going slower than expected.
But at the same time, like the way I'm thinking about it is we shouldn't be waiting for the adoption. We should have the system ready
Right.
in order to enable that adoption of.
Yeah, and that's why I think
Right.
it's just not showing up as fast.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was a good introductory back and forth to get into the practical work, and then let's come back to decision-making of adjustments and what you want from your staff versus what you want to do. So let's warm up with electric and gas systems to build our infrastructure to be prepared for the 250 net zero energy goal. What are the initiatives in addition to survey all existing IT systems and processes to identify limitations, including estimated time before obsolescence?
It shouldn't be just IT, it should be what is the existing system capable of? And based on the forecast on bullet number 1A, we should be planning towards building the system that would enable that forecast projection.
Turn that into a initiative.
Correct.
Right, I'm asking you to give me wording that I will. Initiative 1 is survey all
Survey the
existing.
existing electric and gas distribution systems.
I think it's more of like provide an overview of the existing electric system and its capabilities from a load serving capability.
What else?
And what about the gas though? I mean, we'd have to do both.
So, I mean, it'll be this. So on the gas side, I think this system is what it is. We're not looking to expand it.
Well, you know, I see what you're saying, yeah.
I would say in the second bullet, say existing electric and gas systems.
gas.
And I was going to propose as a sub bullet is, based on those overview and survey, how does the systems need to change based on the 10-year forecast? So, in what we're seeing today, as an example, what we're seeing today, the electric system looks like it needs or will need to expand for the electrification. And then the gas side, we are, have an eye towards stranded assets and, how do investments in that system for the existing customers and not having stranded assets as, we transition from gas to electric.
To turn that into an initiative based on the survey and overview.
Based on survey and overview.
It's almost like a long-term capital plan.
Yeah, develop planning, system planning around, around the 10-year and plus forecast.
Should this also include investments that would maintain the existing system? Just building out for the future? Like maintaining a safe and reliable system for the both
Yeah.
gas and electric?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I would say that belongs in there.
Well, we can't pull the plug on gas without making sure that it's still a safe and reliable system, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
can't.
well, I mean,
Absolutely.
well, the thing about the gas system that I do see potentially happening is, and one of the biggest issues is that gas systems are interconnected. So the only places you're gonna potentially retire gas is on the radial side. And so, but identifying those radial places that are potentials for
Right.
gas retirement are, one of the things that's actually Raven's working on right now. But you can't not upgrade Main Street because Main Street is interconnected. You couldn't just chop out a section of Main Street and say, we're not gonna upgrade that section. It's, to the extent that it's networked together, the radial, and that's what the IOUs is looking at right now too, is to the extent that you can reduce your system intelligently, that's fine, but you can't break a piece.
Compromise the.
Exactly, you
the
can't break out a
safety of
piece of the
existing.
middle, yeah.
Turn it into an initiative.
Investigate radial locations where gas infrastructure alternatives are possible and investigate the alternatives
Mm,
is what I have.
I thought we're talking more about the,
Oh, I thought you were asking
Identifying-
for that statement in a,
Yeah, well, on the electric, you want to talk about maintaining it and also
Well,
investment and upgrading it.
there's gonna be some maintenance associated in the gas system too, right?
Right.
Because we cannot just ignore, let's say, a leak or a replacement of a regulating station if it. And then like the ones that we just replaced at the corner of Farm Street and Water Street, right?
Yeah.
What's the shelf life of that?
Oh, 50
are
years.
you looking at this one?
Are we gonna get rid of the gas system in 50 years? If not, that asset needs to be replaced and capital investment will need to be made at some point.
Yeah,
But do we have any of those that are coming up in the next, let's say, 10 years?
they're all brand new. We did,
So it's more around identifying the investments needed to maintain a safe and reliable gas and electric system.
Yeah.
And then the one above should be more about the incremental investments to enable
the future.
the electrification, yeah, the transition and the electrification.
Yeah. That's good.
So how do you want to change bullet 3?
Identify the incremental investments needed in the electric only.
Develop system planning. And then after planning, then you can insert, incremental investments needed to achieve the 10-year or whatever, or to,
Rewrite number 3. Elton, go.
Identify the incremental investments needed.
the one above it.
I know, I'm just.
Okay. But
Needed in the electric distribution system. Based on the 10-year forecast. To enable the energy transition. Or to enable the energy transition can be going up front too.
That's inherent. So get rid of number 3 now.
so that's getting rid of 3 and 5, because now you got a new 4, right?
Well,
No, 5 was
no, 5 is about maintaining it. Like,
Well, we're looking for, we got to make sure we don't break what we got.
exactly.
Investment needed. Investments needed to maintain a safe and reliable.
I mean, yeah, now. 4 would come first and 3 seconds, so if you want to flip flop them.
Good.
So
Okay. Yeah,
what about, so I know we said that we are gonna maintain the gas and electric system. And we're only gonna make incremental investments in the electric system. What about repurposing the gas system? I don't know, geothermal or I don't, RNG, I don't know what, if that's in our future, but, is there a way to repurpose existing
If
investment
possible, I think we,
for other non-gas?
like hydrogen.
Well, not well, like
hydrogen became a dirty word very quickly.
geothermal,
Um,
thermal.
Right now, it's not cost prohibitive.
Geothermal.
Yes.
On a big scale.
Could we, is there any?
I
cost-
just. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
right now it is cost prohibitive.
I was gonna say, I'd defer to the staff, but I would think that repurposing the gas system for geothermal wouldn't be possible. I would think a geothermal system would be a net new greenfield system, maybe next to the existing gas system, but I would think that that's a, net new system that's put in place.
And the problem with that is that you're not gonna get 100% of the customers to convert all at once, so what at least we're dealing with right now is installing the geothermal in Lowell. And we're still keeping the gas system because only 53% of the customers targeted to convert,
Okay.
agreed to convert. The others
Right.
want to remain on the gas system.
And the Eversource plan in Framingham, I think is facing similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
There's two pilot projects going on right now, so.
you cannot completely decommission or repurpose the gas pipes
Okay,
from the get-go. Eventually, yes, but
yeah.
you're gonna have to get.
Well, I just wanted to,
Yeah, I think.
Say that-
we're missing a point, and I don't know how to frame the point
About,
about the gas system, like, and maybe it's off of this radio location investigation that you're talking about, but I think we're missing something there.
Give us a stab.
But I think the point that we made, and I forget where it was the fact that
on one,
the start is to reduce the gas peak.
right, it's 1B.
Yeah, 1B, reduce gas peak by transitioning customers off the gas. That's where it is. And those places become converting the bigger customers, like the schools but also identifying places where you may be able to approach radio customers. And, if there's a small street in a radial section,
So that's not an initiative, that's a strategy.
Okay.
And that would be the list that you would get created by your staff if we choose to give the strategy work to the staff.
but again, the reduce the gas peak by transitioning customers kind of covers that. And it's
Is
gonna-
where that would fall
Yeah.
under. Okay.
Or would an initiative just simply evaluate alternatives?
About for what?
Alternatives for, for the gas system, that could be, leaving it broad. Could be things like, geothermal, or shared geothermal.
But from a strategy perspective, I think we need to figure out what the future of the gas system is first.
Okay, fair.
I think
Instead of these are like little
What is
components that we can like,
Here, because I don't see it. I think that's what we're struggling with. I don't see that here.
What don't you see there? Be
To
specific.
figure out the future of the gas system.
I had it on
What
the
is-
initial notes. Under integrated energy planning, I started with future of the gas system. The safety and reliability of the gas infrastructure. And then I went into alternative gas infrastructure plans, NPAs, GAG. I don't know why I put GAG, but geothermal, not green, hydrogen.
Do you like what was just suggested? Figure out the future of the gas system?
We had that. We talked about this statement a few weeks ago, and I think we thought it was too vague. And then, so we broke it into, we got more specific. Because it just said the future. And we're like, okay, what does that mean? I thought that's how we got to these.
I think that the 2 points about it right now are covered with the reduce the gas peak and also the one that Elton had about maintain the existing I guess.
Safe and reliable gas and electric.
Yeah.
so perhaps under identify the incremental investment, you could include alternatives like NPAs.
That's left to the strategy work.
I'm just saying it would be included in that, so we don't have to have another bullet.
Right,
Well said.
I agree.
Okay, Tom? You okay with
Okay.
that?
Okay with that.
I think
Any-
it contains the alternatives that we were talking about. Or could.
Any additions to electric and gas systems?
I think on that last bullet there, it depends on how specific we want to be. So it's incremental investments, not just to meet the demand, but also increase the resiliency and reliability of the system as well.
Mhm.
The reason why I'm saying that is
Or maintain / improve. I mean, we're pretty resilient right now, so it's maintain that level or.
yeah, I agree. I mean, but if people are gonna be depending a lot more on electric for like transportation and a 20-minute outage is still gonna be
Would
considered.
it be a safe resilient and reliable, I guess reliable and resilient are kind of the same.
Right, it's already there on bullet 3, safe and reliable. I mean, that's similar, you know. I mean, when you look at our job description in Massachusetts general law, we're supposed to be looking out for reliable supply at a good cost. Those are our two main mandates by the
Public obligations.
legislature.
Public obligations.
Yeah, so I had two around that, but maybe they're too specific. One was to like document and standardize design criteria and customer requirements. And another was to monitor threat type severity and impacts to inform design criteria moving forward. But maybe that's too, I mean, those are more resilience related.
What do you mean design criteria? Do you mean interconnection requirements or what do you mean by design criteria?
So when Dave was talking about, for example,
What Abdir was working
all of the
on.
different,
Yeah.
infrastructure.
We put together a little menu of a hierarchy of load analysis when we're upgrading or expanding the system and when new load comes on. That whole little template that Abdir went over in our last meeting.
Oh, yes.
You know, if X and Y, then we're gonna upgrade to this, if Y and Z and like, what's the, you know, so he has a little analysis model that, you know, and there's minimums. We're not gonna do less than 50s or 75s, and we're not gonna do less than this cable size and all those different.
That sounds like strategy to me.
Right,
That sounds like the how.
That's what I mean. I think it's at that next level.
But,
That's fine.
but what you said about ensuring, okay, that about threats to the system.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said last time, we don't know how the threats are gonna develop over time for Wakefield.
But being prepared,
But threats from a resiliency perspective.
Like
from
weather,
climate,
Could
from
be any of it.
cyber.
Cyber, yeah.
It could be physical, climate, cyber, all of the above.
So an initiative could be a yearly threat analysis and every 2-year threat analysis, like, what would you ask it to be? What's reasonable from a staff perspective?
Every 3 years, keep it. And some parts are every year, some parts are like IT, we probably look at it more frequently. The cyber threat is probably, you know,
That's great.
we're staying on it, yeah.
I mean,
So,
cyber threats could be measured in seconds.
right, exactly. So cyber, we're looking at more regularly, but you know, a climate threat to our system while we're not on the coast is keep looking at it every 3 years at that level.
And that could be tied into like a review and an update to the construction standards to meet climate changes.
That would be the strategy. Presently, we have perform a threat analysis every 3 years, including climate, cyber.
I would also say physical. Right, you know, for example, I assume now when putting up substations, the fencing is has visual barriers in the fencing to, you know, make it harder to shoot through a fence because you can't see it.
That would technically be a strategy.
I'm just saying that's under
Yeah.
as an example of what a physical evaluation would be, is a how.
Yep.
Do we want to say every 3 years or just say on a regular cadence or?
Yeah, on a regular basis. I think
Yeah,
that's.
I don't know, I would lock it to a fixed time frame,
I think
maybe as needed.
Yes, some would be tied into the update of the
Oh, yeah.
plan, the strategic plan, some would be continuously so.
So as needed?
Anything else missing? Electric and gas systems?
I guess my only other question is, I heard you originally say the first bullet was not limited to IT, but I still see the word IT in there. Are we keeping it in, removing it? Is that? Or is
I mean,
it still IT
that's more-
related?
It's not just IT, because you can have obsolescence of other technologies, but
The threat analysis and limitations is slightly redundant. So if we're after obsolescence review, You can add obsolescence to the fourth bullet.
And then take the first bullet out.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Physical,
I think on the
Yeah.
IT side, it's,
I mean, you could do that and take out bullet one, but then you could also add IT to bullet two, where it says an overview of existing, you could say electric, gas and IT systems.
Or you can add that
Well,
bullet four.
so IT is not just on the electric and gas system, right? I mean, it could fit into the customer
Customer.
side too, because.
Yeah, you've got your CMR,
Right, what
your,
type of offerings we will be providing to the customers? I mean, are we envisioning at one point to have like a portal where customers would be applying for service instead of calling in?
Having an initiative to make IT systems be reviewed is really important, and I think it's its own separate thing.
Mhm.
So even though
Maybe not make it the first one, because it's,
I mean, you could move that. Um. To the fifth bullet.
done,
And some of the IT platform investments are touched on number 5 as well.
Mhm.
The second sub bullet on bullet 1. Right, like what IT platforms do we need to develop?
which one is that?
Distribution system
Distribution
assets.
system Assets, energy storage, grid modernization technologies, AMI, DERMS, ADMS, Flizzard, those are like all. platforms,
Software.
Software platforms and
Well done.
logics.
So let's stop this analysis for a second and let's go back and go through each of the initiatives that each person proposed, and each person gets to read it in their own words. And what you're listening for is the language, bless you. Would you change anything to the language? So our first, your only analysis that you're doing is the person reads it and you want to hear the words, because it will trigger your brain to go yes or no. In your brain, you have two tiny little almond-shaped regions, technically called the amygdala. And it's picking up for things that aren't right. And all you're doing right now is listening to, I don't like that. So when the person reads it, they're gonna pause at the end of each initiative and you're gonna go, I don't like that. This is the smell test. Begin, Jen.
Am I reading the goal too?
Can
Can you
yeah,
make that larger
For me?
No,
at all?
you,
I have to do that, so I can read it.
Sorry, or I can go.
Or you could-
Or I can go.
you can just do a view, yeah, all that works.
Oh, that's better. Thank you.
Electric and gas supply, develop a 2030 energy supply transition plan driving towards the 2050 net zero energy goal. Develop 10-year coordinated electric and gas supply forecasts.
Should I keep going?
keep going.
Oh, sorry.
You just give a 3-4 second pause to let people's brain go, love it or don't.
Reduce the gas peak by transitioning customers off the gas system.
Okay. I guess I kind of do have a little bit of a problem with that one. I mean, we don't want to force people off the gas system, right? We want to give them alternatives.
But I don't think that precludes that. I think,
It's saying that we have to get customers off the gas system. But we can reduce peak without removing them from the system. That's what energy conservation is for.
that's a piece of it, but I think, but that's why I don't think,
Should it say including rather than by?
right.
Maybe including by transitioning customers. But yeah, but the goal shouldn't be to take people off of gas. If they don't want to get off gas.
No, but I was thinking more like, but there are ways to do it, like, for example, with the schools, there's A, convert the whole school to electric, or B, some of the stuff that we were talking about at that meeting we went to, where there might be, if the school's not gonna convert off, the other steps that the building department was talking about doing to reduce their gas usage.
Yeah.
So is including transitioning customers off the gas system a strategy? And instead it should just read reduce the gas peak.
Yeah, the objective is to reduce the gas peak. That's the initiative.
That's the objective, but how do we get to achieve that objective?
That's their business.
That's the.
They're not gonna be able to
Yeah,
force
that-
the customers off of the gas system.
But there's other ways to do it. You can incent people to convert, you can,
Right,
incent people to like Jack just said, reduce their usage, so
but do we get then to
that,
the
those are.
enablement of having customers move off of the gas system by providing incremental incentives?
That's a
How?
how.
Yeah.
And what we're asking is, do we want the present how to be included, transitioning customers off the gas system? Is that the initiative? Or is that one of the methods that you would use to decrease?
There's a bunch of different ones we could use, yeah. The approaching customers on the radio if they want to convert off and we eliminate small sections.
Would-
Encouraging,
Better be reduce the gas peak and reduce overall gas usage, and then the hows are all of those things that we've talked about.
I do think it's part of our remit to ensure that, you know, customers are not, that we are proactive about helping customers transition off, you know. So I feel like that's part of our remit, how we do that. There's
Reduce the
many
gap.
ways.
Reduce the gas peak in usage, or are they two separate items?
Boy, I don't know, it's hard because reducing usage, I mean, if you're reducing the peak, many times you're doing that by moving consumption from the peak hours to the off-peak hours. So,
well, in gas, it's a little bit different because it's the cold days versus the non-cold days, so those are 24 hours, so it's kind of different. On the gas side, it's a little bit different than electric. So by reducing the gas peak, you have to give alternative heating sources as opposed to
or rebates for energy efficient, you know,
appliances.
boilers and stuff. So I mean, it's both, but
Isn't this in line with like developing a plan for
The future of
the
gas.
future of gas, right? Because
That's also true. But I think we're gonna have to do both of those things.
when we think about like reduce the gas peak or reduce the gas usage, you can do that, but at the same time, you're gonna be left with a system that is still gonna require investments, and now you're having a small subset of customers.
well, that's my
bearing
concern,
the
yeah.
cost.
Yeah, we're not here to raise the rates, which we will do if we reduce sales.
Exactly.
So we're gonna still recover the same fixed cost over a smaller number of sales. You don't have as much commodity costs, and if you can reduce.
That's why my original part was, if we wanna reduce costs, it's reduce the gas peak. If you wanna talk about the overall, maybe the other is covered by the future of still analyzing the future of gas. Because reducing the past gas peak will reduce overall cost. Reducing overall gas usage may not.
Are both of those strategies and not initiatives?
I mean, I think that they're part of the 2050 goal. I mean,
Yep.
they kind of have to be.
Yep.
And we're just saying, as part of that 2050 goal, here are the major parts of that.
Yep. I see them both as initiatives and I see them separately from the way I've heard you just describe them. And the math equation that you're running is the how, and it's tied to the planning, which is covered in a later initiative. Read number D, letter D.
Develop projections of carbon-free generation.
In the electric supply portfolio.
This is really detailed, including.
Right.
Blah, 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 blah.
I think
Do we
the,
already do this? Like, doesn't
what, develop
the
projection?
development, yeah, the projections like comes in and gives us a presentation on
What do you like?
and what, yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
But we need to keep doing it
We need
probably,
to keep doing it, though,
and we
yeah.
probably need to enhance it as we go forward.
this better?
Currently, is that done on a yearly basis?
It's actually done more real time than that. Like, as we evaluate projects that they identify, we factor in what is
Take a
it?
share of it. and-
Yeah, if we take a 2% share in that project, this is the impact it'll have on our non-carbon emitting portfolio, blah, blah, blah.
Live at it. Read the next one.
Monitor the progression of electrification in Wakefield, adjusting the electric and gas supply procurement plans accordingly.
Isn't that the forecast?
Yeah, I think that is.
Is it redundant?
Because the forecast would, I mean, would inform also the power purchase too.
Right.
Jen, is it separate or does it feel redundant?
If it was just I mean, it may be its own thing in terms of electrification in Wakefield. It definitely, the second part I think is redundant. It's possible the first part is separate.
Well, that, all that E is saying is that we need to monitor basically the supply forecast as well. So we could change the first bullet and have a 10-year rolling demand and supply forecast. And then how often is it rolling? Every 2 years?
It's every year. I mean, we update our.
Yeah, well, we don't really do well, I don't know, do you do a forecast? I don't
Oh,
remember.
yeah, Dave shared at that meeting that step forecast of where the ISO is projecting load and then where we were relative to that projection. That big graph we shared last month.
Right, but how far out does that look?
So 2050.
2050.
Oh, it went out that far? I don't remember going out that far.
I hate doing this, but on the first bullet, that forecast, should that be built to meet state goals? Or built around what we see from a customer adoption?
Well, I think that the goal is to drive it towards the state. Monitoring it is the driver is driving us towards the 2050 goal.
Right.
So then the power purchase then should be a separate one, because the power purchase is more tied into the adoption from our customers versus the forecast will be tied into state goals, but not take into account customer adoption.
Well, we purchase supply for stuff we know we need
Right, but
and not for stuff we wonder if we might need.
but the system
the-
infrastructure is
in the
going
near
to
term.
have to be built for the future, not necessarily
Yeah.
what the customers are gonna be adopting. Meaning,
Like
if the
new
state says,
plants or, yes.
the state says by 2030, Wakefield is gonna have, I'm making up number, 5,000 EVs, we need to build for that, but if the adoption is 1,000, that's where it comes into play for the purchase of the power.
I hear based on what you just argued, monitoring the progression of electrification in Wakefield stays. And that the details of the forecast state or adoption is part of the forecasting, that's the 10-year plan. And that's a strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I know this is about supply, but what about demand? Don't we want to?
Well, that's the forecast
That's-
is that.
Develop a 10-year demand forecast.
It says supply.
That should be demand.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
David's gonna say something.
It's like a load, it's
I don't think I know what.
supply and load.
I
It
think
should say supply and load forecast.
Yeah, the demand will go after 10-year, develop a 10-year demand coordinated with electric supply forecasts, right?
Again, David?
It would be develop a 10-year demand, right? Forecast coordinated with the electric and gas supply forecasts. Is that,
I like load better than demand. Demand on the electric side is a very specific connotation.
yeah,
That's fine, yep.
load forecast, yep.
Yes, that works.
Yeah,
Both together, yep.
Coordinated with the electric and gas supply.
Read number, letter F.
Identify customers who have no choice but to remain on this gas system and develop a plan to support them.
I'm not sure.
What if they choose to be on?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that one's going, to be honest.
What if a customer?
So I was
Chooses to
thinking
be
on
That
that,
one, like, I don't really know if we have like industrial customers that don't, with a lot of load, that there's no alternative for them. Like, I just don't know. That's all. I know we have some industrial customers and there are not many of them, but I just have no idea what that represents
On the gas side, you're saying?
on the gas side.
Yeah, our gas load is mostly,
Big box, your biggest customer is a box company. Is that also big on gas or only electric?
mostly electric.
Yeah,
so maybe it's not a thing if there's no,
They're actually not a gas customer of ours. That end of the town is,
National Grid.
yeah, that street is, so I don't even know if they are heating or not.
Removing this one? Or is it just edited to develop a plan to support gas customers who have no choice but to remain on the gas system?
Jen, is this where we were thinking around, kind of Jack's concern about, reduction of overall gas usage? There's still infrastructure costs to be paid, and then, as the usage gets smaller, that percentage of infrastructure costs gets larger. So how do we support, those folks that are, potentially thinking long-term here, in the,
all right, so
Are you thinking about low income?
it's up.
no, not necessarily low income, but how do those,
If I can just jump in, I think you're saying develop a plan to deal with stranded cost in the gas. side.
yeah, I guess that would be more eloquently put.
Or at least just conciser, but yeah,
That works.
conciser is the word, right?
Concise, more concise.
Concise or,
Is that our new edit?
But not to support stranded cost, but to, I don't know, deal with, or whatever, develop a.
Address or, yeah.
manage,
Address,
Manage, address, yeah.
Mitigate?
mitigate.
admire. Oh, what a big number.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is part of the future of gas as a whole. Do we say that? But yeah, these are like, some of these are sub items of the future of gas strategy.
Well, but it's an additional point on top of it. It's not necessarily how to go about it, but it's a thing not to leave out.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, it could.
Could F go under number two?
Yeah, maybe I think.
Because it's system related?
Yeah.
Do we have
Yeah.
anything?
yeah,
I think it is more infrastructure related.
And
I
then
think you're right.
Okay. And stranded costs with an S.
Read F.
Explore new electric and gas rate designs and integrate into long-term projections of electric and gas rates. We can probably cut that down, just explore new rate designs. I wasn't sure where rate design goes here. I didn't see it anywhere else.
Probably customer.
It might go, yeah, it might need to go somewhere else if we think it's important.
Rate design could also influence the forecast too.
and the supply.
But I like it under customer and then we can. I think all this stuff is interconnected, right? So
Yeah, there's a lot of these
there's a
that,
lot that will
Yeah.
have
the
ramifications.
infrastructure stuff will impact the first one and The first one will
Yeah,
impact.
I like it under customer because, we would, all rate design for both gas and electric or ultimately for the customers to consume.
It's customer choice.
It can be, right? If they like, for example, if a customer chooses to go on the EV rate, that's a choice.
You make it default. Okay,
Are we still happy with number 2 as we just created it? Would you like to read out the?
Sure. Electric and gas system to build our infrastructure to be prepared for the 2050 net zero energy goal. Provide an overview of the existing electric and gas system and their load capabilities. Identify the investments needed to maintain, improve safe and reliable gas and electric systems. Identify the incremental investments needed in the electric distribution system based on the 10-year load forecast. So we should add load forecast in there. Perform a threat analysis as needed, including climate, cyber, and physical infrastructure. Survey all existing IT systems and process to identify limitations, including estimated time before obsolescence, and develop a plan to mitigate stranded cost in the gas system.
Is the survey covered now under the climate, cyber and physical infrastructure? For survey all IT, is that redundant now?
Is IT systems its own separate initiative?
Well, because you have cyber in the one above, you also have physical infrastructure, which is part of two.
We're
I
asking,
would say it's separate, as IT systems touch every facet of everything that is being done here, from, customers to control planes to, I think that it should be called out as IT is integral to everything the department does.
Mhm. What about in, the second bullet, identify investments needed to maintain, improve safe and reliable gas and electric systems? Could you say identify the IT and operational investments needed?
I would argue that's too specific. I like what you're trying to do in terms of
Okay. Mhm.
the investments allows them to then say where that needs to happen.
Okay,
The thing you have to decide as a group is IT separate? Or is it included when we say cyber
But the second
and
to
physical infrastructure?
the second to last bullet, isn't that something that is being done today? It's not necessarily the new
Yeah.
strategy. Where the
Yeah.
existing systems are evaluated, part of the business as usual effort.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a strategy. I think it's combined in the thing above and below as well as stuff we already do. I don't know if it's its own initiative.
Mark, do you consider this already covered by your daily ops in the present organization as it stands?
So not necessarily daily, but it is something that we do discuss from time to time.
Quarterly?
Yeah,
Quarterly.
Are you looking at the systems for their limitations and obsolescence?
yeah, so new challenges, I should say, kind of pop up all the time. And we just, we kind of address them, and what ends up happening is we pull on the proverbial thread to see, once a small problem kind of, pops up, we look at them, we say, okay, what else could possibly go wrong? So that's kind of the process that we follow, if that helps.
Spell obsolescence.
It'll correct you, won't it?
oh, you got it right.
Wow.
First time.
Did
Can you
Yeah, it's
scroll
such a
up
good
to the
speller.
Goal, I just want to see, like, it says electric and gas systems does it make sense to put electric, gas and IT systems in the actual title of this or no?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think we might as well make a new 3, in my opinion, and just throw the IT in there I mean, we want to keep it somewhere, so let's just put it in as a number 3, as opposed to take it out, but we shouldn't put it in with electric and gas if we know we're talking about IT systems that also impact customer.
I definitely believe that you've got it covered when you put it in your threat analysis.
Yeah, I don't think we should add another whole goal around it. I think we should either keep it where it is or assume that, because we're covering it as subsets. I don't know if we want a new major goal.
I feel like it should be embedded within electric and gas systems because everything is going more and more digital, you know? It should be covered.
It's also, like we said in a couple of these others, they're including it, like, it's a huge piece of the customer stuff too, and so these things are in other places too, and they do transcend all of the above, so like, if we're gonna keep it, then let's keep it there rather than add a whole new goal about it.
I would think that IT is covered in bullet number 2 and bullet number 4. But
I really believe you've got it covered. As it's presently written, IT is part of the daily, weekly, quarterly analysis.
Yeah, it's integral to everything that they do. So as they're developing a plan for, bringing, say, a new metering system online, well, that metering system comes with IT, well, whatever
Yes.
whatever that looks like, but that's part of the how.
Moving on to you, Jack, number 3.
Okay, but we haven't discussed it at all yet, like we did discuss the other numbers 1 and 2. But I can go ahead and do it.
No, you're reading it to then.
I know,
discuss.
but yeah, okay.
So the only
Well, we
reason number
discussed 1 and 2 at length before we went through this exercise, that's all I'm saying.
No, number 1 was done exactly as we're doing it for you. Number
Okay.
2 was done differently because we
Only
wanted to
because-
practice our thinking together.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so I'll just go ahead and read it, and then, because I did have, my thought that I was gonna throw out. So anyways, customer. Address customer barriers and needs to drive electrification of buildings and transportation. Survey customer pain points and needs to support the energy transition.
And by the way, you can pause to interrupt yourself anytime you want, Jack.
Mhm.
You can add your comments whenever you want.
Okay, thanks. Evolve energy efficiency / rebate offerings to continually reflect new technologies and greatest savings opportunities. And here's where I thought maybe we would just tweak this, but develop education and outreach efforts for small multifamily condo owners and landlords. And the only reason, the change that I'm now proposing would be, to incorporate the low to moderate income, since we put that in the in Pete's goals for 2024. So I would say develop education outreach efforts for small multifamily. I would say condo owners comes out, that would be residential customers or something, because it could be apartments as well as condos.
Should we stop it at the develop educational outreach efforts for, it's almost too specific. If we keep it at a higher level for this document, and there's gonna be subsets of all of that for low income, multifamily, as we educate on, energy conversion for a single family home, I think there's gonna be all kinds of things like that, so these are just a couple of subsets of the larger. Maybe it's develop and evolve education and outreach efforts.
I like that. To your point, there's a lot of things that could fall under that.
you could say develop and evolve targeted education and outreach efforts.
And it'll vary over time too,
All right, so then all right, so develop and evolve targeted education and outreach efforts. And then comma, and then I would propose something like considering, for example, at least, low to moderate income, we could say, outreach efforts, develop and
Yeah.
involve education outreach efforts targeted towards specific groups of customers, for example, low to moderate
I
income.
don't know if we need to include, in this type of document, I don't think we need to, but the prior few words targeted. What you said before you went to the example, I think we could reuse, but when we go to the example, I don't think we need it in this document.
All right, so all right, develop and evolve education outreach efforts targeted to specific
Customer groups?
Yeah.
customer groups.
Yeah.
And leave it at that, and
Yeah.
then staff gets to run with it.
Okay. But I think you do have a point that this is gonna be expensive. I mean, there'll be barriers for some customers, to electrify, and also their electric bills might be higher.
Okay, so we actually need to kind of go back again, because the next bullet,
Which one?
the fourth one,
Oh, create education.
yeah, well, so let me read it. Create education for the reduction / management of all electricity uses.
It's redundant.
It's somewhat redundant, yeah.
Do you need to say something about reduction of energy? Or is that a strategy?
My 2 cents is that's a strategy under the fourth bullet there.
Yeah, I think it's the next level then. There is a place though, in this section, I think. So around customer, that could relate, if we're talking about this customer sector. Around customer costs and including the like that's maybe where we deal with the low income customer. In the customer section, we want to manage customer costs in the long term. And maybe that's where we factor in, including, the low income sector. So somehow we bring those words in at a separate bullet around overall customer cost.
Even on the redesign, as well.
Yeah, for like, those are the words, I'm struggling with the sentence, but there's something around customer cost, affordability. And low, that's where we kind of tie all that together. Maybe not including, but factoring customer costs. Customer costs and affordability. So yeah, I think if we talk about costs, that's when we bring in the whole concept of the different segments of the customer base, including low income.
About with an.
Do we want to have a
emphasis
fifth
on-
bullet just around low income? And I'm struggling with the sentence, but just, enabling low income, or having assisting low income.
Well, I think where we factor in the affordability, that opens that up to that. And then
Okay.
one of the strategies around that may be low income programs or things like that, that when you're taking into, if you include the word affordability, you're factoring that in.
What if
Yeah,
we,
it's covered.
what if we said explore new electric and gas rate designs to address issues such as affordability and the energy transition, or electrification, I guess, is what it means.
Factoring makes it something you think about. Address means it's something you're gonna fix. Which do you prefer?
factoring.
Factoring
Yeah,
in
you could say factoring in,
the factors that we are thinking about considering
Yeah,
right here.
factoring.
this is a more global document, yeah.
So I would just take out customer cost, but I would say affordability and the energy transition or electrification. Affordability and electrification. It's more than just affordability. Right, because it's incentives, not just keeping rates down, but it's incentives through things like time of use rates.
Well, in bold, it says to drive electrification of buildings and transportation. Is that,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
electrification
yeah.
is covered.
say it again?
Good point.
So, all right, but then it's more than just affordability, because it's also the electrification in the heading, so.
I don't know, I'm struggling here.
Well, new electric and gas rate designs.
It's not just new, like rate design isn't really just about affordability, it's about changing behavior. You
Right.
know, it's about,
Well, that's why I think it's saying it's gonna do those things, but we also wanna factor in affordability and cost. Or, you know what I mean? I think if we just leave it at factoring, we're gonna use rates to drive behaviors. But we're also gonna use it, but we also, as we're doing that, we need to factor in affordability.
Hmm.
And that kind of brings the concept of lower income customers being kept in mind as you do any of this.
So let's say because of time tonight, you've done it, and if we want to edit this, you can make suggestions
okay,
to the words in the final edit. This is not your final document. This is the best draft that we can come up with as of tonight. Any additions to bullet 3?
Yes, I think bullet 3, I'm sorry. You mean customer?
Customer.
I think we're missing in bullet 2, cost effectiveness. And I also wonder if we're being too limited with just saying energy efficiency rebate offerings. I think we should be thinking about all of our offerings, and it feels too narrow.
Well, it's not rebate offerings, it's energy efficiency offerings.
We have a lot more offerings than just energy efficiency offerings. For customers.
we have
solar, we
EV
have-
stuff, storage.
What did it say?
So it's redundant now when we look at number 2 to have affordability and cost in number 4. Because greatest savings opportunities could be changed to affordability.
Well, look-
No, that, I don't agree with that, because greatest savings opportunities doesn't necessarily factor in affordability for Mrs. You know, she may not be participating, and we still need to factor her in if she's struggling to afford her bill.
Heard.
Yeah, I would agree. Rate design and offerings for new technologies, efficiencies, incentives are separate.
Yeah, I do like the more generic version of evolve offerings of any form to
Yeah.
continuously reflect new technologies and greatest savings opportunities, yeah.
Yeah, so we
Yeah,
could just.
that could be that could be a project that we take, you know, the energy park could be considered part of the, you know, savings for the community wide.
Yep, and I just think we're missing something around cost effectiveness there.
To reflect new technologies.
Cost effectiveness.
Say more about that.
So we have never really compared like energy efficiency to renewable energy to all of our incentive designs
To
to
one another to see how they stack up in terms of customer cost effectiveness and cost effectiveness
just for the utility.
We do that in that analysis we share, like, you know,
We don't compare one thing to another, though. Like, I think we look at each thing in isolation. But if a customer says to me, like, what should I do first? Or what is the best? I have $5,000. How should I spend it?
Mhm.
That would be like, oh, this is your more cost-effective option for you, that kind of a thing.
And also, I think it helps us assess like how are our incentives
like, how is our incentive design
Yeah,
working, right? Like, is it a good deal for the customer? How good of a deal? Should we stay at this level? That kind of thing. So that's why I think.
that part I think we've been doing as we look,
We-
yeah, that part, yeah.
But that's more of like a bill impact to the investments that we would make. Like the energy efficiency programs or the rebates, right? What you also talking about is more like the educational piece to the customer, and I don't see us as a utility providing that type of service to our customers. The customers would have to
What
do
I-
some of that on their own.
But what I see you're saying is that as we look, evaluate our offerings, not just our rebates, but if we evaluate our offerings. What are the most cost-effective offerings that, you know?
That would achieve
Like,
the
for example,
goals, yeah.
we drop windows or we moved the bar for windows much higher because they weren't a good investment. And, you know, that's constantly evolving as we look at heat pump dollars and versus that washing machine versus that, you know, heat pump water heater, like comparing all those different offerings. Are we at the right incentive level? What's the cost per KW saved? All that stuff is, you know, that, I think that's.
How much participation or
Yeah,
can we
right.
expect and what kind of investments do we need to make to support it?
You may want to think about putting in this particular bullet, even environmental impacts, right? So we're focused on cost, but you really are focused on the environmental impact.
Yeah, that works.
You've done it.
Good job, Dave.
Tom, would you like to read number 4?
Sure. Workforce, develop the energy workers of 2030 and beyond. Identify new roles and skill sets. Define those to be phased out. Create training programs for future needs. Encourage current staff training and talent development. Develop partnership with Northeast Vocational School for student training and internship opportunities.
So strategy.
Yeah, if we're gonna keep it, I would say develop partnerships which increase educational opportunities we have, like last month, we have Abdier from Ben Franklin. So if we
Yeah.
wanted to say develop partnerships to increase training opportunities or something like that.
And
I felt that the voc was too narrow and very exclusionary.
I was just gonna say, we have to take the vote out because the high school just asked us if we would help
Right.
that too, so.
Develop partnerships to increase what?
You said something opportunities.
Training
Training
opportunities or
Learning opportunities?
Well, it's more because it's also.
Educational.
Yeah, well, it's two-way street. It's educational opportunities for those people, but also, you know, opportunities for us to potentially identify people that we could hire. So,
training and employment opportunities?
Is it training or is it just, it's learning opportunities for local students?
yeah,
It's,
That's simple.
Well, yeah, I would say educational and opportunities for future staff, right? Because this is the development.
Yeah, but that's the reason we're doing it, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the pool of future,
Yeah.
like the available workforce, right?
yeah.
No, that takes the schools out. The whole purpose of this was.
No,
work
that's-
with the schools.
That's a strategy to work with the schools, which increases the available workforce because you've gone out to a new group of people.
yeah.
But there's no one else we're not training anyone else.
Again, this is the partnership.
I mean, other than interns, but
No, but I mean, so develop partnerships, we're partnering with Ben Franklin, we're partnering with the tech and the high school, we're partnering with NEPA, we're partnering with the Georgia Line School, you know, the Southeast Line School, the train, you know, there's all kinds of partnerships, so at a more generic level, it's you know, you're developing partnerships with all these entities to increase your talent pool, you
All
know.
right, so develop partnerships to increase. Oh, yeah, this is a pain in the butt. All right. Yeah, potential future workforce is what I'm trying to get at, but yeah.
Yeah.
There it is, yeah.
Like it's further down the road, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
And some of them might go off and get another job somewhere else and come back 5 years later and still be a potential future workforce, you know.
You've done it.
All right, moving on. Create mentoring programs for junior staff. Foster an environment where employees want to stay and grow.
I think we're redundant on the mentoring programs for junior staff, and then isn't there something up above for?
Great.
So there's encouraged current staff training.
Yeah, I
And
think,
talent development.
I think somehow we can bring those two together.
No, that's a mentoring programs is a strategy.
Yeah,
It's incorporated in
yeah,
staff training and talent development.
exactly. That's what I thought that was kind of redundant. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and maybe we rewrite this a different way, or it is in my thought around that is, you know, mentoring the next, you know, line leader, the next executive staff that we have. So showing those folks that are coming up to take the reins of those leadership positions. And so that was the spirit of where that I wanted that to go.
Encourage current staff training, mentoring, and talent development.
There you go.
okay, but does that mean we don't need three? I'm sorry, the bullet 3 and 4.
Create training programs for future need.
There's a difference actually in the talent world between creating the programs and then pushing the programs. So forgive the analogy, but it's someone makes the drug, someone deals it. You need both.
Yeah, I mean, for that, I think it's more of an industry thing too. Like Dave's taking a leadership role in the NEPA training programs. He's on the training committee for NEPA. You know, we've partnered with so create training programs for future needs is in a bunch of different places. You know what I mean?
But is it more creation or identification of programs?
It's both.
Because you wouldn't expect to be doing everything.
Right, we're not gonna develop all our own programs.
Does it create and identify?
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah.
Sharon, go.
Funding. Maximize diverse funding sources in order to lower customer costs. Research and apply for external, federal and state sources of funding, grant loans for investments. So I think that maybe we don't need to specify all those things?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should, I think that next level.
Get rid of the,
Yeah, those are
parentheses.
strategies, yeah.
So you're moving all the clear bullets.
Oh, no, just in
Just in
the
the first
bullet.
The federal and state.
Get rid of federal and state and grants and loans. Okay,
Oh, I thought the next stuff was getting pretty specific.
yeah, so I had utility scale generation, solar, wind, distribution system assets, energy storage, grid modernization technologies, AMI, DERMS, ADMS, Flizzr, system integration software, et cetera. Demand side assets for residential and small C&I, heat pump storage, EV charging. So, I mean, I do see a difference. I don't want it to be just for utility scale generation, just for distribution system assets and just for customer. I thought, I don't know if we need to. Maybe we can get rid of whatever is in parentheses first.
Would even bringing it down, making it very generic, you know, funding for investments in all facets of gas and lights business or something, you know, all facets of the business.
Something more like that.
Cause you know, like Sharon, those are all great things, but in, maybe there's an IT, grant out there.
Okay,
That way being all facets
yeah,
covers everything, and then the how is all of those sub bullets that you know,
Business
have.
operation.
Make sure you give those sub bullets to Pete and Dave and Mark. So write down.
They've got them in the.
Current draft, yeah.
I guess I'm wondering if we're missing something here, which is, and I'm gonna say this wrong. Like define the types of efforts that ratepayers can fund versus efforts that should be funded by other parties. Like, I feel like there's some discussion there that we haven't had yet.
like don't pursue funding that,
Well, it's not that you wouldn't, it's just that you have an like you have like some prioritization, I guess, of what you're looking for to augment what, you know. I don't know.
Is that the capital plan though? You know, so
No, I think.
Well, I guess we haven't, we don't, I mean, here's an example, like, we don't fund cars, right? New vehicles. Like, there's certain things that we don't typically or haven't in the past funded. But we haven't really ever had like a discussion about it. And we definitely fund like the distribution system, right? But there's just a lot of elements to this that we haven't really talked about, like to what extent WMGLD and or its ratepayers should be funding in the first place.
Jen, are you saying more like, you know, a state comes down with a mandate and or law? How is that, you know, the discussion of where does that get funded?
Right.
Because a lot of times these are passed without those discussions happening. And then it, you know, should it be the ratepayer? Should it be gas and light? Should it be the state? Should it be the feds?
Yes.
When you say funding like car purchases? So how would you do that when somebody buying a Chevy Bolt versus a
Tesla.
truck?
So I'm not saying we should, I'm just saying we should discuss and have some sense of what we think ratepayers should be funding.
Towards the purchase of a vehicle?
well, no,
just
not
like
necessarily.
Well, another side of it, look at the heat pumps, the heating and cooling
Yeah.
thing. To what extent should they, so when you talk to the state, they draw a line like where we end and when the customer starts, and then they don't wanna count these costs over here. Even though we are saying, you gotta think about it all the way through. If we were gonna eliminate gas on your street, we would say, I need to make sure I can convert Elton's entire house. And the state is saying, that's Elton's house, you know, I just need to figure out how to put electricity to his front door to cover whatever he's gonna need.
Right.
So those are the things we have to figure out, cause if you let.
What's our responsibility
But that's a
versus the
statute-
customer's responsibility?
Statutory responsibility, right? I mean, we don't have a statutory responsibility to provide customers even with the incentives. Like we can zero them out.
But I think there's a bigger picture though. If we were gonna go in and try to convert customers off of gas, then we gotta decide like to what extent we're gonna do that, you know?
Right, but that's more at the policy level, where it has to be at a state or federal level, changing the way utilities operate.
Oh, I know they're trying though. That
Well, I
2080 is a
know,
piece.
But even in 2080, it's not necessarily defined in details as far as how it's gonna be happening.
And that's where I hear Jen saying, let's have this conversation. And so by putting an initiative of defined funding sources of new initiatives. Initiative redundant there, but necessary. You pushed yourself to have those conversations. Read the next two and then we'll see where it fits.
Pursue partnerships with the town and other large customers to share in the development of new projects, renewable energy storage, work with MWIC to establish a zero interest loan program. Heat loan for customers. So my thing is that, you know, what I'm thinking is missing here is two things. It's not just research and apply, but I think we need to also just monitor and track, like, what are the opportunities out there? Because as we know, they trickle in. They're not,
Yeah, the rest of the board member will talk about that.
yeah.
So we've been doing that, like, that spreadsheet that we have.
Okay, so you're saying that we don't need to put it in there?
I think we've been doing it all.
Doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we have a number of things in here that we've been doing to different degrees. I would like to see the monitoring and then the decision-making around what of all those opportunities, what subset do you actually,
Right.
and why?
And in addition to the discussion around where the line is between customer and, you know, what the customer pays for and what we pay for, it's also, we also have to have a discussion around what are the kinds of investments or what are the kinds of funding that we're going, you know, what is our criteria for pursuing funding? Because we're not gonna go after everything that we're eligible to pursue.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Right? Just because we can,
Administratively burdensome,
Yeah.
likelihood of winning.
yeah, there's criteria that we need to consider, so.
The reason to leave in monitoring and tracking is you're showing those people who will read this and look at it, employees who don't know how important that is. So it stays as part of the initiatives in terms of funding. And then define criteria and funding sources of new initiatives captures, I think, the totality of what you just mentioned in terms of having the ongoing conversation.
Would,
Including,
in the define criteria and funding sources, would it be define criteria, funding source, funding sources and responsibility? Because it may not, you know, in an initiative, the responsibility may not fall on us. You know, it may be the homeowner or the business. It could be the state.
Well, the criteria is for us to determine whether or not it makes sense to pursue a funding opportunity. That's what I was thinking, not, I think the idea that you're mentioning, Tom, is something
Okay.
is different.
Criteria to me, I read terms and conditions. That's what I'm reading.
Like. Oh, how to say this?
It's like an evaluation method.
Criteria to me means what you have to do in order to qualify for the source of funding.
Or decision-making criteria about whether we should
Whether to pursue
pursue
it or not in the first place.
the
I don't mean
opportunity.
eligibility.
Because we could be eligible for 50 different types of grants,
Yeah,
but we may not, like, for example, I'm just making this up. There might be like 5 different types of weatherization, whatever funding grants available that we are eligible to apply for.
Mhm.
But we don't need weatherization grants. So like, because we've already
Or we.
met every single need in the
Or we
the
do,
town.
but like, only 10 people are gonna apply for this one, 1 million are gonna apply for this one. So we should focus on the one we got a better chance of getting. Or the amount of work that's required to apply for.
Or the impact,
Or the impact it would have if we did win it, you know,
yeah.
is it worth the
'Cause-
effort so like you said, the criteria, like. How do you decide which ones to chase and which ones not to?
Right, because in my experience, the
also-
amount of work, the
Yeah.
administrative burden is the same, whether it's a $10 million grant or a $1 million grant.
Yep.
So,
We're learning that. That 1.3 million is a lot of work.
Yeah. So let's see, define decision-making criteria and funding sources of new initiatives. Does that cover your funding sources of initiatives? Does that cover your?
I
Or,
think so.
It doesn't mean anything to me, and I'm
Yeah.
so confused about what your concern was. So initially it talked about finding funding for the light department. And I think what you were saying was, we're also missing the part where we're researching funding grants opportunities that customers themselves can apply for, that we can educate them about. Is that what you were saying? Then if not, I have no idea what the second part was that you said was missing. So there were grants available to us. That's what it started out as.
Hmm.
And what is the grants available to whom, if you're saying we were missing something? It's either a grant to us or it's a grant to the customer, right?
Oh, and not, or there are other funding sources other than the customer and the utility, I guess, but I wasn't being that specific about it. I was just saying.
Okay.
I think about what ratepayers can or should fund in general, more generally. And that would help you identify which areas you might be looking for other funding in or supplemental funding in.
So what this is pushing, Jack, is how do we go after funds for new initiatives? Decision-making criteria, and who are the sources? Is it ratepayer? Is it state? Is it special grants? And again, left general and a bit unclear, as you're rightly saying, so that it inspires the conversation.
And that's not in bullet number one?
I don't see it anywhere.
no. Maybe, for the last bullet, I would like to separate those two, but define decision-making criteria for pursuing funding opportunities.
Yeah.
And the other one would be,
Wait,
Okay, that helps, because now I know what you're talking about when you say.
then the other one would be, determine,
ownership.
ownership or responsibility, or, no, determine.
Funding responsibility,
Or,
or investment responsibility.
I don't know. I mean, you could be more explicit and say WMGLD versus customers. I don't know.
Well, I think that this determine investment responsibility of new initiatives, right? Does that, for example, does that come out of the EE budget? Does that come out of a gas and light budget? Does that come from a grant from the state or Fed?
I think the generic is more better than saying MLD or,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
keeping it more generic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was saying like
Makes
this, I was giving those as examples where this is being generic. We're determining where a new initiative comes, where is it funded from? And it could be all of the above or any one of the above.
I think you've nailed it.
Is everyone okay with work with MWIC to establish zero interest loan program? Or do you think that's a strategy?
It feels specific.
Yeah, I'd say a specific, could it be MWEC and, I know that MWEC does have funding, but would just put and other financing organizations or just.
I mean, this is about encouraging other funding sources in the first place, right?
Right.
So we don't.
I think
that
the
specific.
zero interest loan program seems more like a strategy than
I was thinking
yeah.
a strategy
So maybe it's-
I'd like to see happen,
Maybe it's advocate or encourage other funding sources.
Right.
Or something like that.
or financing.
Yeah.
Low, because I think there's difference, a lot of these things we were talking about are grants that we would pursue.
John, I don't even think we need the end of that.
Yeah, I don't
think-
either.
And is it for customers?
But it started out as customers, because bullet one, we're already looking for sources of funding, and that's for the light department.
Right.
And then bullet four was, three was,
It's about
Was-
customer
yeah,
specific
developing,
financing mechanism.
yeah,
You've done it.
pursuing new opportunities for.
He's done. I know we're gonna.
No, the reason I'm calling it is because.
Can I only make one suggestion then? Before we, that last one, shouldn't it come above for customers? Shouldn't we be like, just in terms of order, the investment response, like deciding who owns what part of it? And then you put that above advocating for financing for funding sources for customers, because you're assuming some portion of it's for the customers.
But then you'd have to take bullet two and move that underneath. You know, and put it right above define.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't done this ordering, which probably would be helpful throughout.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping you guys could.
Yeah,
reorder.
we'll play with it a little bit.
And also like, instead of the bullets, because we've been saying bullet 1, 2, 3, if we could have like a ABCD or so that we can actually refer to things.
Yeah. We'll play with that.
Are we happy with our initiative language and initiatives that we've gone through?
Solid first.
Yes.
I am.
That's good first pass.
Please push the save button. Thank you.
So, and I will send it before I leave tonight. So the next step for tonight is to give the assignment to myself and the staff. I heard you say reorder so that they have a logical flow. A little formatting. Do you, as a board, as a commission, excuse me, want to define the how? The strategies for each of these initiatives? It would include 2 to 4 specific activities, segments or geographies in which you would be directing the staff to then go after each of these initiatives to fulfill the goals.
I think that they should take a stab at it. I don't want to be too prescriptive.
Yeah,
I agree. Let the experts and the
I don't think you
professionals.
should, given this board. I think you've actually just created your strategic plan, and I think we're now to the editing and how do we present it. And that the next job at a meeting is to define what good looks like. And I'll put a little bulleted list together for you of staff strategy development.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that if the staff could just take into consideration discussion and things that might have been removed, right? But you're like, those would be a strategy as they.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All strategies that are listed in the March document will be included in the conference.
Considered.
Yep.
Considered.
Mhm.
We don't have them,
That's all in here.
yes, and I think you have it.
Then in terms of presentation, just as a straw person, you put a glossy document together, which has an opening letter describing the process that you just went through, the time frame of this particular piece of work. It then has the list is edited in terms of flow and has the sections that include the new mission, the new vision, these goals and these initiatives. And then the assignment coming out of it is the presentation of strategies and the timelines, which will be done by your professional staff. On what timeline would you like to create a pretty version of this particular document? Edit for flow.
Before inclusion of the strategies and timeline.
Yeah, strategies and timelines is a separate exercise. Exercise 1 is you create the final draft that looks attractive and has the flow that you then are actually editing for final. When would you like that by?
June's meeting.
Can we say we're
Well, are
meeting
we-
again in May?
I don't think, I guess that's a question is, are we meeting again?
We're about to ask if you
Well-
need me again, and I'm gonna say from the way this group has
Yeah.
worked, you don't. In terms of the creation of the strategic plan, You could use me one more time as a follow-up at some point over the next year for how you work with the staff and the presentation of that. But it's also just, you did so well on your own, you don't need me. And it's, would you enjoy having a person to push your conversation a little more precisely and drive the conversation with staff members on what you expect of them?
I think we should try to pull the document together by the June meeting. And then, that'll involve iterations of sharing the document at the next two meetings. We can try to finalize it by June, and then we only meet a couple times over the summer, so maybe at the June, we can also discuss future roles of having John facilitate whatever we want to do next.
Works.
Okay.
So the June meeting, I'm sorry, I wasn't tracking, would not include the strategies
No,
yet.
no, we're finishing the document first, and then the second half of
Got
the
it.
year, once you've got a final draft, would then go into prioritization, so roadmap first, and then strategies.
Mhm.
So which things can be done in what order,
Yep.
year by year, approximately.
So, yeah, Mark, Dave and I could take a initial pass of that. It might be. We might talk to you a little bit,
You all can call me individually at any time.
but like Dave, Mark and I might talk to you a little bit about that.
All part of this.
That next step too, as we get ready to present it to the board.
Right, we may do staff time work, which is a
Yeah.
separate piece, but that's not included in what this is. Some of that is included. The ongoing conversation with you as an executive team or any one-to-ones with you as board members is all part of what we're doing. And so I hear the timeline of, you're gonna circulate, once we've flowed this particular list of initiatives and made it look pretty. You're gonna look at it then in the two meetings before June. You're gonna try and finalize it by June, in the June meeting, or at least make final edits between June meeting and the next meeting. Based on what you produce in June, you will then, over the next quarter, have the staff create a prioritization list by year in terms of what they think they can do, and then begin the strategy work. And the strategy work will be done by the end of calendar 24.
Sounds reasonable to me.
What does the strategy work look like?
So, and that's where I'll work with them. Reduce the gas peak. They will suggest 4 to 6 ways in which they will reduce the gas peak. Present that to you meeting by meeting or in one larger segment in which they're going to talk about what they can do over the next year versus what they think they can do over the next 10.
So it's not just bullet points, it's gonna be more a detailed.
Actions.
It's bullet points in each of these initiatives that then have a plan behind them owned by a particular staff member. And that's making sure that happens as part of what we're doing here, right? Like I would do a training with a handful of staff if needed.
So at the end of 24, the final product would be 50 to 100-page document then?
No, it would be the 12-page document, maybe 15-page document, maybe 20-page document of all the strategies.
But not the details.
But not the details. The plans you would be able, but you could have owners there.
Okay.
And you would be able to go at any point to an individual staff member and say that, for instance, identify the investments needed to maintain and improve safe and reliable gas and electric systems. Mark owns it. So you would have the 4 strategies that we're intending to employ. So we're going to hire a outside consultant. We're going to do a systematic assessment of present improvements that are being engaged in. We're going to have a quarterly meeting with Elton to discuss what he thinks we're missing, right? Like, and that's the strategy list. And then there's an owner of either each of those individual strategies or the bucket itself. So again, to summarize, we'll make it pretty and create a flow based on what we've done in terms of wordsmithing tonight. That'll get done over the next month. That's the first draft. You'll look at it before the next meeting. You'll then have another second meeting to look at it again with a mostly final draft in June. Between June and September over the summer, the staff will promote a timeline of what of these initiatives can get done on what schedule, roadmap, and then strategy work will begin, call it August, September. to provide by the end of the year, maybe present in January, the strategy list with owners. And I'll write that all up in the notes.
Okay.
Good.
So you will not have me at your May meeting, but you'll consider places where I could be helpful in the future. Staff where you have full access to me to brainstorm things if you need it.
Right.
I will send notes out tomorrow morning to everyone based on what we just did.
Awesome.
Cool. How do you feel about this? Is it too overwhelming or?
Well, I like the fact that we've taken and risen it. Some of it was at this level and some of it was here, and we kind of, I think we've brought it to a similar level, so we'll review again and, you know, like I said, I think shuffling them a little bit will help, and like John said, but we'll work with him. But I think we're in a much better place. Cause I was feeling like we were at all these different levels.
Yeah.
Yes, we were at all these different levels.
Which is the role of the facilitator that's outside your group, is I'm actually making proclamations at different points about what I think is necessary within the larger context of doing this kind of work, because I'm not as close. I don't care which ones you pick. I have my personal interest, but I'm only interested in you choosing and defining. And then going forward, we're interested in people having the best strategies and owners who are going to make sure they happen, and you being able to have oversight. Obviously, metrics is something that we can work on in future sessions. But that gets done once you figure out what the strategies and the owners are.
It will be
Some type of
really-
Reporting on a regular basis and.
Yeah, I think the question came up about like how often we're checking in on this, and I just feel like it's really helpful to see which ones you think are most near term. Because I can envision this kind of flowing into the performance
Yeah,
when we set next year's, actually, this aligns, so the key categories here align really well.
well, I think that,
What's already been set up as a structure.
right, and I was telling John before you came that I felt better about it when we kind of
Right.
tweaked it last
Saw
month.
kind of-
That we were more aligning it with that, which made it a little bit easier to grasp too,
Yeah.
you know?
So,
And I actually shared that with John before you guys all got here, so.
No, you did a great job of simplifying already, and you did a great job of editing and clarifying tonight. And then now it's to just validate these final flows that staff have put together, and then be good reviewers of, are the strategies living into the values that you already have established and the mission and vision that you already clarified.
Great.
Good.
All right. So we're all set. We can move on to the next item. John, thank you very, very, very much for all the effort you've put in, getting us this far. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
You.
so much.
You haven't lost me in terms of this process until we actually have the document and strategies built.
Yeah,
Awesome,
perfect. We appreciate that.
thank you.
And we appreciate that staff has work cut out for them. So thank you all too.
Yeah, we were bored, so.
Yeah, right.
Never know.
All right. So let's move on to the next item. John, you gonna stick around or do you wanna,
No, I will exit.
you wanna take off? Okay. The next item is the DOER proposal for the funding that Jen asked us to put on the agenda. So Jen, do you want to start with this one? Take it from here?
Sure. And I'm not sure, I was trying to figure out how it's connected with all of this material we received, and I'm not completely sure yet. So I'll just say that the DOER announced how, sorry, let me start over. The DOER proposed an approach for muni, I guess, funding level and participation in IRA funding. And they had a webinar to review that, and there's a comment period that's open now until, it's a very tight comment period, I believe. I want to say it's like the 25th of March. You probably know it.
Mhm.
You can. So a short window, but just wanted to raise that is going on, and a lot of it seems to be focused on
Well, I guess I don't fully understand it just yet. So I wanted to get, like, hear what everyone else's take is on, at some point, on, just understanding what the proposal actually is. And then hear whether, anyone is thinking of offering comments on that proposal that would change it, that would recommend any changes.
Is there anything, Pete, that you know of going on?
Well, I mean, we've been following the DOER, IRA stuff, like, we're involved in a few, that's why we shared all this, this is stuff that Joey's been tracking all along. So I don't know if this is like, this is what we're actively involved in a couple of different things that are going on, and those are all spelled out here. Works with E&E and a large,
What is the document? We're looking at, what,
this one.
yeah, I know it is, that's what I'm
That's a
going.
summary of,
I think it's the second page where it's just.
Yeah, I know, that's what it is. So, and what is it?
this is a summary of what we've been tracking and
This is something you produced.
yeah, we produced
Thank
it. This is what Joe produced, this is what we've been doing for the past year, or at least 7 months, 8 months. In terms of different grants that we're engaged in and different efforts we're engaged in with E&E, with MWEC on our own, so that's kind of a summary of the activities that we're pursuing.
And is the one that I just spoke of listed here?
No, because I'm not exactly sure what, is it?
Okay,
is
it's
it?
it's called like a her here. Essentially like funding opportunity. So there are these two programs, and this is what I really don't understand, I guess, the her program and the here program. And their proposal is that under the her program or funding that munis would get $22 million
Mhm.
to be put toward, it sounds like mostly low and potentially moderate income customers.
I think that is actually what Zoe's following for us on the MWEC side, yeah. The her here stuff is in that MWEC bucket, so.
So the total funding bucket is 22 million.
For
It's
just
fif-
that is carved
yeah.
out for Muni.
It's
From you.
15% of the total that the state has, which aligns with our proportion of sales, basically.
Do you want me to bring up the DRE proposal for public input?
Sure.
Sure.
Is MWIC looking into that and they're
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
like carving it out proportionally?
Right,
amongst all
based
the-
on interest for the individual communities, Zoe's been following it. I'll confirm with Joe, but I'm pretty sure that's a piece of what she's been following.
So a bunch of the questions that came up that I've heard so far is, does each community like get a certain allocation, or do you have to like indicate an interest? Right,
My understanding right now is that you just don't automatically get allocated your percentage of the 22 million. You have to
Show interest.
You have to show, you have to, it's kind of opt in. You have to try to,
and then, so there were questions around, is there any additional, like co-funding required by each MLP to go along with this? There are requirements around like contractor screening and some other things like that that are part of this that I'm not sure whether we have in place just yet, or whether we're using the same processes that Mass Save is using. So I was just unclear.
right,
as to that.
again, part of pursuing it with Zoe is that, like, some of that pre-qualification, that can be done at a higher level, and we will, so that piece of it is definitely, we would allocate that part to MWEC if in this bucket. It's different. These other things that we're pursuing in this grid resiliency stuff and all those, there's all these different buckets that we're tracking, and that's why Joey's had this, spreadsheet going on for a little while now, and I think, we're keeping a close eye on a bunch of different opportunities, and I think that in this particular case, this is one we're monitoring with Zoe, and our comments are, Zoe is putting in some comments at the MWEC level.
Okay. One of the comments that I'll just say I've heard is that it seems like people would actually like some of the here funding rather than it just being all her funding, because it seems like here can go to more lower cost measures Like there's different measures supported by her in here, it sounds like. So that's one thing that I have been hearing a fair amount.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Jen,
whether-
you read, this agenda item. I thought, at least I thought we'd be looking at, do we want, as individual commissioners to put commentary in, or as a board? And you were right, 3/25 is the deadline. Do we as a board and want to submit commentary? And I didn't know if there is things from, Pete, that you would like to see us as a board support, or around how to maximize this for us.
I'm not
Because
sure.
this isn't,
Yeah.
because this
I don't
isn't
know.
a grant yet. This is, the DRA is looking for input from, potential stakeholders. Do we have any input around their plan, or where we'd like to see changes?
I think the answer is no, because if we did have input, we'd have to have it in by Monday, and I'm not gonna be around after tomorrow, until probably Wednesday of next week. We're not gonna be able to have a meeting where we'll be able to get together and agree on comments from the whole group. We'd have to have a meeting and vote on it.
Yeah, I agree. We're not looking at a board letter per se, but if folks wanted to submit their own individual letters, they certainly could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if you have anything
Or if you have
specific that.
comments for MWEC.
Right, exactly.
Then
If
it
we,
can go back.
if anybody wants to share anything with me that I can make sure Zoe's including at the MWEC level. Yeah. Or at least considering. Yeah.
Right, because I mean, I'm assuming we would have to work through M-Week to show interest into this two available.
I think that's even a question too.
We could do it on our own.
Is
Well,
what-
one of the things we're finding is that we're probably better off working as a group if we can, to the extent possible. But we would show our, not even, so MWEC represents 20 players, not all 20 of the MWEC players would even want to participate. So we would tell Zoe, we're one of 7 that want to try to play in this bucket. Yeah.
I'm sure, if we want to file comments through MWIC, I'm sure the other, munis would have similar kinds of concerns and questions, so it's
I'll
not,
talk to her tomorrow and I could send an email out just saying, what,
sometimes
what
it's-
where I hear her coming from right now.
it might be more powerful coming from MWIC
I
than
think it will
one
be.
individual
Yeah. If-
passing light.
If it comes from her representing 10 to 20 munis, then. So again, if there's a specific comment that you think you want to you want to email it to me and I'll make sure I get it to Zoe make sure that topic's being covered.
Yeah, and the question I asked or typed into the chat that I don't think got addressed is, we don't even know who our low and moderate income customers are.
Yeah, we don't,
So we would need information, right, from the state or whatever to even know who to target with these funds.
right.
And will that be provided?
And it's a moving target all the time,
Yeah.
right? As people move around and
Mhm.
come in and.
Absolutely, right. But we do know the people who want us to know if they're low to moderate income. The people who've come forward and say,
Correct. But for like proactive targeting,
sure,
like,
yeah, we don't.
Yeah, again, our list of pursuing community solar people is based on the list of the people.
right.
That have identified themselves to us in various ways that they want to be known as that.
Yep.
Pete, has Zoe indicated other munis on, right here, just one call out, like the matching funds from MLPs? Have other munis called that out as a potential barrier?
I don't know.
I can see that.
I'll have to talk to her. Joe's been participating in the meeting, so I'll have to check with Joe and her tomorrow.
That's the other thing, if there's matching fund requirement, we would have to think about how that would change, and if it's more on the customer side, like any of the offerings that we have on
Right.
the rebates and everything else. And what the timing of all of this is it? Do we,
They said fall of this year,
We would apply it.
so it's.
we
not
already
that-
set the budget for this year, we'd have to go and redo it if we would have to apply for any of these grants on the energy.
Well, applying, I mean, it would actually probably fall into next year's budget because by the time you put, based on the state,
Right.
yeah, we wouldn't
Unless they
be
have requirements, unless they have requirements.
Yeah.
I think they were saying they would hope to finalize the program and start to kind of like,
Yeah,
move things along.
it would be highly doubtful that money would be going out the door before the end of the year.
Roll out beginning of that.
But I mean, I think the question that I have too is like with co-funding, would our existing energy efficiency incentives be considered to be the match, right? Like, could we use existing funding that's already allocated?
Yeah, I don't know if that's clear yet from.
It's not, I don't
Yeah.
think it's clear
Yeah.
just yet what,
Reduce it or maybe double it if there's.
right? Could we braid essentially our funding that we already have in place with incremental funding for a certain customer group? Yeah. And I'm not clear on that from all this.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I continue to think like I have more questions than comments at this point. Of just like, exactly what is this
Well,
and
You know,
how's this gonna work?
you, from those questions, you could develop a position or, you know, like, because I think that's what they would want to know. Like, opinions on.
Yeah, so I've just continued to ask questions so I can understand what's being proposed better.
Jen, here's the here summary that you were referring to earlier.
Right, so this has like specific, the other one is like electrification and weatherization. This is like, it's more comprehensive, that's the HER. But here has like these smaller appliances, like cooktops, clothes dryers, electric upgrades, electrical wiring, things like that, that don't seem to be included under HER as eligible measures. So that's what people were talking about, is they would love to see access to some of this funding, pot of funding for munis.
Pete, will you,
I'll read
share with,
going.
will you share with us her comments?
Yeah, I'll talk to her tomorrow and get an update and.
Yeah, just so that we don't all have to go separately going looking for them or whatever.
Yep.
Great, thanks. Anything more on this matter?
If, no, I just, well, just let me say, if we do have comments, by when would you, Zoe?
Well, it's 25th, and the sooner the better. We only have 2 more days this week, so.
You probably have to have them by Friday
Okay.
morning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The public input stuff's up on the screen.
okay,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, if this ends up being focused on low and moderate income, then it makes that goal for next year of related to low and moderate income all the more important than it was before this, because there will be a funding source for that.
Okay, anything more? I just had one other thing to just remind everybody, we do have the revisions to the 2024 goals document that Pete put into a Word document. And so we all have to just kind of review that and make sure not all the changes actually appeared on the version that Pete sent us. I actually have a version with all the changes, so if anybody wants it, we just make some photocopies. So we'll see the exact changes to the document before we give it final approval. And so I would propose that we all look at that and at our next meeting, finalize the goals document. Okay,
Are we gonna have the next meeting or?
well, we are gonna have a next meeting. The question is when. So, yeah, so, yeah, it seems like we can definitely have a March 8th meeting. So then the only question is, do we want to, because that'll be 7 weeks from now. Do we want to have another meeting in April? I'm sorry, May, yeah,
Hey,
May 8th, sorry, yeah. So do we want to have another meeting? Pete, you had said that you might not be available the 3rd anyways, which is 2 weeks from now, I think.
Right.
And But you also said that there really wasn't much on the agenda.
Right, we didn't have any planned presentations for, we've been more focused on this. I don't know how much more progress we'll have on this stuff within the next week and a half, so.
And the next issues we have to deal with will be board reorganization after the election, which is coming up in a few weeks. And then also we have to approve the DPU report. And Mark, will that be ready for the for the May 8th meeting?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, because when is it due? In June or is it due in May?
No, so during COVID, they actually pushed all of from here on out, they pushed all of the deadlines for munis out to September. But it'll, yeah. So,
that's right. So we don't, okay, that's fine.
But it still pertains to the last calendar year, so we
Right.
want to get it done, yeah.
right, so we want to get it done. I mean, worst case will be June, but yeah, I can, it'll get done in May.
Okay, yeah, that's great. But yeah, if like, no, like I said, if the deadline isn't May and it's not done until June, that's fine too, but.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about the need for a meeting on April 3rd or April 10th? Or do you want to just give everyone the night off and meet May 8th?
And potentially some of you have already said you're gonna come to the May 1st MWEC meeting too, so people will be there.
Yeah, yeah.
The meme meeting is the 16th and 17th, I
Right.
think, of May, so there's a lot going.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's,
That-
yeah, we've been, and yeah, and we're like, we had a couple of long meetings recently. And we're well ahead of where we were last year in terms of the goals and the performance review and stuff like that, so. I can go either way. I'm around May on April 10th if we want to do it, but I don't know that we need to.
I'm not sure what else we would have on the agenda unless there's specific items at this point.
Yeah.
Can we take care of the 2024 performance goals over? Can we just, when would we do that?
Yeah, you all just have to look at these edits and make sure you're okay with them, that they actually reflect what we discussed at the last board meeting.
And you said you made, so are you gonna set up another document of it?
The problem is, when I look at it, these documents, I don't see the edits. I have to go to the library and look at it on the computer, and then I can see the edits.
Yeah,
So I was just gonna say, if anyone wants to see them, I can send you the file if you're gonna open it in Word, or I can just make a photocopy right now, and you can look at them.
Let's do photocopies. Yeah, let's take it with us. That's fine. I mean, I would like.
Me too.
I will put out, I'm not available on April 10th for a meeting.
Oh, well, that's
Okay.
helpful.
So,
So
I just-
I'm okay with skipping April, especially because we have two conferences and a board meeting.
It's so much, and then we have, you're gonna be away because it's a school vacation the rest of April.
Week, so that makes it challenging to find a date too, and you're out and everyone's busy.
Dave, Mark, Sylvia, are you upset if we skip April?
I'm very disappointed.
They are not at all. Not at all upset.
I'm
Dave,
going
we
to
can
the
make
eclipse.
a mandatory meeting just for you if you wanted to just hop
Thank
on
you.
Zoom. We can play an old board meeting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, record it for us. We'll watch it later. All right, that's great. So the next meeting will be May 8th, 6:30 PM.
Okay,
Super.
are you going to both and MWIC?
I
You can't, yeah.
can't,
I got here.
probably can't go to both, but I would like to go to MWAC. I'm
With
unsure.
that?
I'm planning to go to MWAC,
Mm-hmm.
but I am unsure whether I can also go to MEME.
Mhm.
So
And I'm
Where's meme
Plymouth.
implement,
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to the MWEC meeting and I haven't decided yet about me. I still have to look at the agenda again and see if it's worth going.
I don't think they've released the agenda, have they? I think they said it's
Oh.
coming.
Oh, maybe, but because there was the email recently that said to let her know if we want to go, and let me see.
I think that was MWAC.
That's MWEC, yeah. In Pittsfield.
Well, yeah, well, the MWEC email that I remember getting said that there wasn't an agenda until Pete sent us one recently.
Oh, okay.
But let me just see.
Okay.
Have you been to a
Oops.
meme meeting? No.
I have done.
I've been to a mean meeting, but I don't know if I've been to the.
Same here. I've never been to the meme annual meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Here's my email. Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah. So March 9th, we all got an email from the Secretary Treasurer with the agenda. March 9th. So you can go back and look at your emails and I'll do the same and see if I'm gonna go to meeting or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Very well. So finally, Tom, do you want me to send you my red version?
Yeah, or if it can, yeah, if you can email it, I can open up in Word.
Okay.
That'll be fine. And I'm tentative for MWEC. I'm just finalizing a few things before I can absolutely say yes.
Okay.
Didn't get an update on the hotel booking. Sounds like if you check the box in the form saying you need a hotel room, you do not need to call the hotel and book your own room, that they will actually book
Okay.
you.
Okay, I'll confirm that.
So if you don't mind, yeah,
Oh, okay.
because I tried to call to book a room and wasn't it, so
Okay, I'll,
followed up with them and they said, let's clarify the process here.
Oh, because I booked my room.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, she wasn't clear.
yeah, so we should just,
All right, so is she gonna send out clarification then?
no. She just clarified with me over, like by a voicemail, so.
So she's saying you don't need to book it if you sign up?
Cause
she
I
will-
just on the form like checked, like I will need a hotel, like I'm staying over.
Okay,
She's like, you're taken care of.
So,
Like, oh,
okay, because I didn't look at the form because Pete said he was gonna register us.
yes, this we need to confirm whether we need to fill out the form and, book it.
okay.
Yeah,
Let me clarify with her tomorrow. They made it
Sorry.
harder than it needed.
Yeah, well, yeah, but just so you know, so I made the reservation yesterday and today at noon I got an email from Kate and she said, oh, I know the hotel just called and said you made a reservation, but you haven't registered yet. And I said, oh, well, Pete's gonna register all as he's collecting names. So,
yeah,
you know, so I just,
there's some confusion there.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Because you were, because one year you went to a conference and they didn't have,
well, that was,
No.
yeah, that was only because I registered so late that there were no more rooms in the hotel and I was a couple of miles down the street. And that was a pain in the butt.
I would like to go to the MWIC. So do I need to just email?
Just tell me right now and I'll clarify
Okay, yes.
what the right process is.
Okay, thank you.
Typically with these conferences, we register you, then you guys handle your own hotels and then
Yes.
just do reimbursable
Yes.
expenses. She's making it more complicated by adding that they're gonna do it, so.
Yeah. But then they reimburse you for the hotel or because?
No, well, they're gonna still want your credit card when you get there. I think she's just reserving the room or
I think
something.
she's just putting the block in with the
Yeah.
right
Okay.
number of rooms for people that are planning to go.
Yeah, because they need my
Yeah, I thought
credit in advance. They won't
Both
ask
ways.
for that when you check in. They're gonna ask for it beforehand because they need the
Yeah,
deposit.
that's why it's typically easier that everybody makes their own reservation. I don't know why she's doing it
I
this
don't know.
way, making it much harder.
Although, Pete, I was gonna say, I've had it both ways where MWEC has picked up the hotel tab and I haven't had to submit it to Gas and Light.
Okay,
It's been a little different every year.
Yeah.
So we got
Very well. All right. That's been a productive meeting. Is there anything else before we adjourn?
just a question for David Mark before I can. Is it gonna ask me when I stop recording or when I end?
When you end, it will ask you about, oh, no, stop recording now. So go into it and stop
Yeah.
recording.
going
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, oh, in a second. I will that in a second, yeah.
Yep. So, and then after you do that, then when you end, it will record it on the computer.
Okay,
It will stop recording it when you tell it to stop, when the meeting's over, and then when you end the meeting, leave, it will record it on the local computer.
all right. All right, so let's take the motion to adjourn and then I'll stop recording.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye. And Tom, who's on the
Aye.
phone? I think we're supposed to do a roll call because someone's on the phone, or did we say we don't have to do
I
that?
will record it as that.
All in favor? Oh, so we did that? Okay, we're adjourned.